Well, last week I went 7-7. So the only one who had a more disappointing week was the Bills. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Yeah, 7-7 seems about right. Grossi, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting every single game in Week 11. We got some amazing games coming up, highlighted by, of course, that Monday Night Football game. But first, last week, these are all the games that I got incorrect. I went 7-7. Which means I am 91-60 on the year, but Chiefs fan number one still reigning at number one with a 108-42 record. So congratulations, still staying on the top. And now let's get into the week. Starting off with, is this a good Thursday night football game? I've only heard about these in myth. It's here. You got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Baltimore Ravens. And listen, both these teams having some pretty bad losses last week. The Bengals losing to the Strouds, otherwise known as the Texans, in a last-second game-winning field goal. And listen, the Bengals, they had a little bit of a scare with Hendrickson, but he's back on the field, so he seems like he's okay. So that's a big bonus, so avoided a major injury there. But the Bengals were the latest to find out how real CJ Stroud actually is, and I'm a bit disappointed in that defense because the defense for the Bengals has been just really good this season, and that was kind of the last thing I thought would fail in that game. Meanwhile, Joe Burrow had some really costly turnovers, and that wound up costing them. Of course, Tyler Boyd did drop that ball, but at the end of the day, they need to play in the first quarter, and they just need to get better. And I think ultimately they're going to be fine. They're taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who, good God, Ravens, you're going to have to repress those memories of Sunday's game because that was ugly.
No amount of therapy will ever make this moment okay.
Losing to the Cleveland Browns and dominating in the first half, scoring 17 points in the first quarter, and then that second half just falling apart. And Deshaun Watson played well, went 14 for 14 in that second half. But for the Ravens, it's just going to end with what if, because they had opportunities to close out that game many times, and unfortunately were unable to do so. And so now, heading into this Thursday, this is a huge game, not just for within the division, but also in terms of potential playoff standings. And being played in Baltimore, and since Hendrickson is not going to be at 100%, I am going to pick the Ravens to get the win. However, I can 1,000,000% see the Bengals winning, but I'm going to give the slight tip of the hat to the Ravens. They should be able to move the ball against that defense. And yeah, Ravens, let's flock. Following that, you got another AFC North showdown between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers pulling off a win against the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. Regardless of being outgained like every single game, they're still 6-3. And for Steelers fans, it's just tuning in every single week and going, what BS is going to occur that gives us the victory this week? And hey, you just keep on winning. Meanwhile, the Browns, breaking news, Deshaun Watson out for the season with a broken bone in his shoulder. And honestly, this season, I'm just so sorry, Browns fans, because it's just been this.
Every single day of my life has been worse than the day before it.
What about today? Is today the worst day of your life?
Yeah.
It just keeps getting worse. Whether it's Nick Chubb going down, now Deshaun Watson, after we just talked about him looking good in that second half, and now QB position is up in the air again. You see Josh Dobbs balling out in Minnesota, and it's just a rough season for y'all, so I apologize to you. The Browns, I mean, listen, their defense can definitely rip them into the playoffs. They were winning games with PJ Walker, so it is most definitely possible. However, I do think the Steelers' BS is going to save them once again, and going up against a backup QB, that defense should feast. So because of that, I am going to go with the Steelers for the win. However, I have not gotten a single Steelers game right this season, so if the Browns win, you're welcome. Then you got an NFC North showdown between the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. both coming away with the win. And yes, that means the Packers were the only ones to lose in the division. It's fine. It's good. But yeah, these two teams heading into this matchup.
How do I look?
Amazing. How do I look?
Normal. Ugly.
Justin Fields was a full participant in practice today, so on Sunday, it looks like he will be ready to go. And they're going to need him if they want to take down the Lions. The Lions, who got into a shootout with the LA Chargers last week. And yeah, they left their passing defense at home, but damn, that offense is so good. They just have so many weapons. David Montgomery is so good on that team. And it's going to be his revenge game going up against the Bears, being played at Ford Field before their big Thanksgiving showdown with the Packers. I'm going to have to roll with the Lions here. I mean, they are just firing on all cylinders. And while the Bears did get a win, it was against the Panthers, and I don't see them beating these kitty cats. Then you got the LA Chargers taking on the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. And to be honest, both these teams probably nervous heading into this one.
98% excited, 2% scared. Or maybe it's more. It could be 98% scared, 2% excited, but that's what makes it so intense.
The Chargers suffering defeat by the Lions in an absolute shootout. Justin Herbert played well. That offense was moving. Keenan Allen, how good is he? But their defense, very, very disappointing. Meanwhile, the Packers, yeah, right back down to earth. And while there definitely was some progress with Jordan Love that I love to see, there were still some significant issues. Of course, the run defense was really, really bad. And I'm not going to lie, I am terrified of Justin Herbert coming into Lambeau and absolutely dicing up that secondary. Hopefully we get Quay Walker back and Jair, because we're going to need both of them in order to succeed in this game and have a shot. It is being played at Lambeau, so I think the Packers have a decent chance here. If I was a gambling man, I'd probably pick the Chargers, but I'm a Packers fan, so I'm picking the Packers, baby. And if you ask me to defend that, I'm just going to say, no thank you. Then you got the Vegas Raiders taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Raiders, hey, they won. And AOC didn't look too terrible.
Well, I wouldn't get used to it because you know it's not going to last. Bullshit. I'm not going anywhere. All right, buddy.
Going up against the Jets, and they were one Hail Mary away from losing that game. But the Raiders, it's kind of just a feel-good story right now ever since Josh McDaniels got fired, which seems ironic, or does that sound like the greatest Hallmark Christmas movie ever?
This holiday season, forgetting Josh McDaniels.
Anyway, it seems like the players absolutely love Pierce, and they're taking on the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins just opened up the practice window for Achane, and when he returns, that offense is going to be so much better. And it's already fantastic. You are impressed with the Miami Dolphins defense, how they did against the Chiefs in that second half. And if they could just really fire on all cylinders against good teams, they could be great, especially with the AFC East in total disarray. I am going to go with the Dolphins here, being played in Miami. I don't think the Raiders are going to be too much of a problem for them. They are going to have to watch out for Max Crosby, of course. But yeah, I got the Dolphins getting a big win and getting back on track. Then you got the New Jersey Giants taking on the Washington Commanders. And Giants fans, good God, they had to watch the Cowboys outgain them by almost 500 yards on Sunday.
Doesn't even hurt. At this point, I'm numb. There's no feelings, so you can't even hurt me.
They're just not a good football team. Everything has gone wrong for the Giants. I mean, of course, catastrophic injuries, but the offense is just not good enough right now. And the defense isn't completely awful, and there's some nice building blocks there, but this season, those blocks are all falling down. Taking on the Commanders, who lost off a game-winning field goal against the Seahawks. And yes, there's definitely some disappointment with the Commanders. However, Sam Howell, there's not really any disappointment there. He played incredibly well, and he seems like he is going to be the guy to build that franchise around from the limited scope that we've seen. But I just love watching Sam Howell play, and I think he's going to probably put up a highlight reel against the Giants this week. Because, yeah, the Giants are one of the worst teams in football, and the Commanders, they're not. So because of that, Commanders win. Following that, you got, oh God, why? You got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Cowboys beat the ever-living crap out of the Giants last week. Dak Prescott was amazing. CeeDee Lamb is having a phenomenal year. Tony Pollard is a person who exists on the Dallas Cowboys team. They're going to be taking on the Carolina Panthers. You know, the Panthers, where Frank Reich, the first-year head coach for the Panthers, is already on the hot seat, who's probably looking at David Tepper like this.
Hold on. This whole operation was your idea.
Yeah, things are not looking good. And the issue is Bryce Young has no help. He doesn't really have much of an O-line, doesn't have the wide receivers, but he also needs to get better. Watching him in prime time against the Bears, it was ugly. There needs to be more zip on the ball. Kurt Warner was even tweeting about it, talking about how he needs to get that ball out more quickly. He's not ready to throw when he needs to. And again, these things can all be fixed, and it's not doom and gloom, because the Panthers, it was unlikely they were going to be even competitive this season. There was a hope that maybe they could be a dark horse team, but things have just fallen apart. And here, the Cowboys are just going to add to that. It'll beef up their stats a little bit. And yeah, I got the Cowboys winning. Following that, you got an AFC South showdown between the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both these teams got their ass kicked last week. And Titans fans looking at another unfavorable matchup.
Every day I wake up.
Will Levis, Derrick Henry, nobody did well for the Titans last week. But you flip on over to the Jaguars, and it's basically the same exact thing, because the Jaguars, they got their ass handed to them by the 49ers. Their offensive line could not stop the pass rush of San Francisco at all. And unfortunately for the Jaguars, this has kind of been a theme this season about their offense sputtering and stalling out. Because whether it's turnovers or their offensive line being problematic or Calvin Ridley just not being involved with the game, that's been the weak spot, and I really thought the Jaguars' offense was going to be amazing. Their defense is still very, very good, and hey, the Titans could have a bounce-back game this week. I am going to give it to the Jaguars in Jacksonville, though. I can't imagine the Jaguars' O-line being that bad again, and while the Titans' defensive line is very good, I just don't know about their offense right now. So because of that, and probably what's going to be an ugly game, I got to go with the Glitter Kitties. Following that, you got what I think is actually going to be a low-key really good game. You got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Houston Texans. The Cardinals having a big win as Kyler Murray returned and another game-winning field goal last week. And you got to feel happy for the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. A lot of people, including myself, thought they were going to be the worst team in the league, and they have shown that that is not the case. And now with Kyler Murray, they are going to win some games. And I think it's going to be a close matchup against the Texans. The Texans, who also had a game-winning field goal against the Bengals, and C.J. Stroud, his second game-winning drive.
I'm a god.
You're God.
I'm a god. I'm not the god. I don't think.
He is him. C.J. Stroud, going to be a front runner for MVP and Offensive Rookie of the Year if he keeps playing like this. And I do think this is going to be a close game. I think Kyler Murray, with another week back, is going to look even better. His agility definitely didn't go away. Dude is still an amazing athlete. And the Cardinals, I think, are going to make this really, really competitive. I am going to give it to the Texans because they did just knock off the Bengals and looked really good doing it. And while the Texans are not a superpower team yet, the pieces are there. And yeah, they're likely a dark horse wildcard team. And for that, I'm going Houston. Then you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Buccaneers, hope has returned, absolutely dominating. Baker Mayfield looking phenomenal last week. And this is what you want to see. And I've said this about the NFC South for a while now. Whether it's the Saints or it's the Buccaneers, both of those teams are good enough to win their division, and they may be good enough to win a playoff game, but after that, I think that's their ceiling. And the Buccaneers, they have a good defense. I mean, Will Levis and Derrick Henry were unable to do anything. So even though they're in a bad division, they still are putting up some stats. And like I said, Baker Mayfield hasn't been the problem these past few weeks. They are going to be taking on the San Francisco 49ers, and that defense, it just reminded everyone who they are.
Did you forget who I am?
Chase Young, Nick Bosa meeting at the quarterback. You love to see it unless you're the quarterback or the opposing team. But the 49ers had their way with the Jaguars. Brock Purdy, even though the Jaguars defense threw a lot at him, looked phenomenal. And even though CMC didn't get a touchdown, it seems like the 49ers are all the way back. So because of that, even though the Buccaneers did play well, and I think they'll provide a decent test for San Francisco, I got to go with the 49ers here. And yeah, if they get going, watch out, NFC. Following that, oh God, you have an AFC East showdown between the New Jersey Jets and the Buffalo Bills. The Jets losing on Sunday Night Football, and the viewers losing because they had to watch that game against the Raiders. And listen, the O-line is terrible. The defense is phenomenal. Zach Wilson has moments. Hell, he threw an amazing Hail Mary pass there, which was almost caught. And I got to give him some credit for that. Now, apparently, Aaron Rodgers is going to be back full-time around the holidays, looking at Thanksgiving. That's what he said on the Pat McAfee show. So that is definitely something to look forward to. But speaking of things to not look forward to, you got the Buffalo Bills. And Bills fans, after they just dropped another game in prime time...
Are we trash?
Kinda.
Oh.
Big yikes. Losing in probably the most heartbreaking fashion there is to lose a game, in which the game-winning field goal for the Broncos was wide right, and then there was too many men on the field, and they kick it again, and it's just a mess over in Buffalo right now. Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator, did get fired. I know Bills fans were calling for that for a while. Let's see if that makes a major difference, because people are already looking at head coach and going, maybe there's an issue there, or does it all stem from Josh Allen turning the ball over? Either way, this is probably going to be an ugly, ugly game. Being played in Buffalo, they're going to hope to get some revenge against the Jets from that Week 1 loss, and I do think the Bills should pull this game out. I am very curious to see how Josh Allen is going to go up against that defense, but yeah, I'm going to pick the Bills. I don't feel confident about it, and yeah, I think that tracks. Then you got an NFC West showdown between the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams. The Seahawks getting that game-winning field goal against the Commanders. Geno Smith, it was a tale of two halves. First half, not really so great. Second half, looked much better. And that's kind of what the Seahawks offense has been. They've been struggling in the red zone this year. They haven't been consistent enough. And while they do have a very good record, that is something to be concerned about going forward. And I know Seattle's a little upset with me because the Seahawks won and they still fell out of my power rankings.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair.
Because I think we're at the point of the season where we're starting to see a bunch of good teams. And so they're going to have to start standing out if they want to be part of the top 10. They're taking on the LA Rams. And I got to be honest with you, I'm going to go with the Rams, and hear me out. Matthew Stafford is expected to be back from injury, and that is a huge boost to that Rams offense. And listen, I know they struggled against the Packers because they had Rippon in there, and hopefully they don't have to ever see Carson Wentz. But when Matthew Stafford's in there, they got Puka, they got Kupp, they got Tutu Atwell, they have phenomenal wide receiver names, and I do think that the Rams could upset the Seahawks, because it just looks like the past few weeks the Seahawks have been off. They got stomped by the Ravens, and then they barely pulled off a win against the Commanders. And again, the Commanders, they're a feisty team. Sam Howell is really, really good. But it's a divisional game. If Stafford's back, I think the Rams sneak away with one. And Seattle, if I'm wrong, I'll probably put you in the top 10. Then you got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Denver Broncos. Both these teams coming away with a big win last week. The Vikings, Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut. And it's so conflicting because I hate the Vikings. They're the purple incarnation of Satan. But I love Josh Dobbs. And 20 years from now, Vikings fans are going to be sitting there reminiscing on this time.
He was special.
And this is all without Justin Jefferson. They're taking on the Denver Broncos, who pulled off a big win against the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. And their defense looks pretty damn good. Not just with the turnovers, but we are far removed from the 70 points scored on them by Miami. And right now for the Broncos, there's some optimism there in Denver. Their offense definitely still needs some work, and I think going up against the Vikings is going to be a really interesting test. Cortland Sutton, of course, with the catch of the year, and Russell Wilson's not playing bad by any stretch. And it's kind of interesting how this game, which I already wrote off that wasn't going to be good, now looks like it's going to be a pretty damn good game. I am going to roll with the Vikings because I think the momentum with Josh Dobbs is just insane right now. But Vikings, I just want to make it very clear, I still hate you with every fiber of my being. And the Broncos, they're going to be a chippy team, and it's being played in Denver, so they definitely have a shot. But yeah, I'm going with the purple incarnation of Satan here and Josh Dobbs. And finally, the game that we have been waiting for.
That's what we've been waiting for.
It's what we wanted all along.
You got the Super Bowl rematch. You got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is a game that I've gone back and forth on for basically the entire week. Both these teams were on a bye last week. The Eagles, best record in the NFL and the top seed in the NFC. The Chiefs coming off a win against the Dolphins a couple weeks back. They had that bye last week. And this is just going to be a phenomenal football game. Both these teams are not really fans of one another. Of course, you have the Kelsey brothers storyline and the fact that the Eagles are still pissed off about the Super Bowl.
I've been waiting for you, Patrick.
This is going to be so much fun in a hostile environment in Arrowhead. And the Eagles, they 100% can win this game. Their offense is really damn good. Their defense can absolutely get after Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs, their defense has been underrated this year, and their offense, while it has struggled at times, they can still put up points with the best of them. And this is going to be a perfect test to see how good these two teams really are. In a weird season where it seems like there aren't really that many great teams, these are two of them. And originally, I did pick the Philadelphia Eagles to win. However, being played at Arrowhead, I'm going to give the slight edge to the Kansas City Chiefs. Also, I made the Chiefs number 2 in the power rankings, so you're welcome. But yeah, Chiefs get a very gutsy win here, and this might not only be a Super Bowl rematch, but a Super Bowl preview for this February, and all I know is I can't wait to see it. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning and losing these games? Let me know. You guys saw me at Tom Grossi Comedy at all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go.